Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Capt Savene. I run a business called No Time Charters in Oceanside, New York. I've been doing it for close to 30 years right now. And I've done a number of these lectures, although they've been changing over the years, because now we're catching the fish differently than we used to catch them 5 or 10 years ago. Some of you guys are a little older, so you may remember some of the ways we used to catch them. It's all changing. Changes constantly. Not always for the better, but it is what it is, and we kind of roll along and adapt to what's going on. What I'm going to talk about today is trolling striped bass. And we're going to start with the tackle that we're using, okay? The first thing, if we're going to be trolling a spoon, okay, this isn't an outfit and a rod I would recommend highly. It's a Maja rod. It's about 8.5 feet. Not a particularly, not a custom rod or anything, it's a production rod. As production rods go, it's excellent. Tremendous action. When I say action, I mean bends right from the tip right to the butt, which is what you want on a spoon rod, okay? The reels are basically a standard Penn 113H, which has been a go-to for a long time. There are a lot of other reels you can use that will work equally as well. This particular reel is a workhorse. I find they're more durable than some of the other reels, though they are a little bit heavier to hold. I would recommend, we started out using years ago 300 feet of wire on these, and you would probably be better off going 350 to 400 now. The fish have been schooling up in deeper waters the last 4 or 5 years, closer to the 3-mile line. Whereas in years past, we used to catch the fish tighter to the beach, 20 foot, 25 foot, 30 foot. So being that you have a sink rate at 10 foot per 100, you know, 300 feet was more than sufficient to fish anywhere you needed to. Now, you know, you fish in depths of 50 and 60 feet a lot of times, sometimes even a little more, and you need a little more wire to get down. So I would, if you're going to spool one of these up, I would go with at least 350 and maybe 400. I use 50 stainless. You can use Monel, it's got a better sink rate, more expensive. I use the stainless because a lot of times the tackle on my boat gets misused by people who don't exactly know how to fish that well. So we try to use something that's a little less expensive. If I was fishing personally with a rod in my hand, I would use the Monel because it fishes a little better and it gets a little deeper. The sink rate's a little better on it. You want to put some backing on the bottom of the reel or bulk it up with some tape. On these I have Dacron backing. You don't have to replace the Dacron, you know, hardly ever, maybe 5, 10 years. The wire I replace at least every year. Sometimes even if it looks good, it can be damaged and it will break just for no particular reason. It won't even be kinked, and sometimes it'll just break. It has a shelf life. It doesn't last that long. So if you use it the way I use it, you got to do it at least every year. Maybe a couple of you guys are fishing, you're not fishing that often. You can wait a little longer on that, but it's better to do it that way and replace it when it's kind of a preventive thing, you know? Like you change it before it breaks. Because the spoons are expensive and you could lose a trophy fish like that, so you don't want to take that chance. But the leader that I'm using on here that I'm attaching to the wire is a 80-pound mono leader. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You want to use fluoro, knock yourself out. It can't hurt. 80, and you can use even 100. I would say a minimum of 80, okay? The way that's attached, I mean, I've attached it with Albright knots already, but usually we attach them now to a small Spro swivel, which has a low profile, and they're extremely strong. So you can get a swivel like that, and usually Mark over at Bay Park sets these up for me. Not that I don't know how to do it, I do, it's just that I don't have time to do it. So he usually rigs these up for me. And you're going to attach about a maybe 15 to 20 foot leader onto the wire. And then the important thing here is that you want to use a ball bearing swivel. And I know a lot of people who set these things up and they don't use ball bearings, which to me is ludicrous. You know, you want a good quality swivel on there. You don't want any line twist. For the extra money it costs for a ball bearing, it's worth it. It really is. Because this you're not going to lose this very often. It's gonna stay with you. So I would suggest a ball bearing swivel. Honestly, cannot tell you the weight on this swivel. I could guess, what do you think, Jim, 150? Yeah. Oh, you got an eye problem too? It's a medium-sized barrel snap swivel. You know, you could vary from this. You can go a little bigger, a little small. It doesn't really matter. You know, and some people, what they do is they don't even use a snap. They'll attach directly to a swivel on the spoon. But this is just easy for quick change and stuff like that. Because sometimes you will want to change. What you got to be aware of is this: when you put this on a spoon, okay, you're going to get a rocking motion on the spoon. That's the way it normally works. So as the spoon is rocking, it will wear the metal on this swivel out. You can't see it on this one because this one hasn't been used that much, but after a while you'll start seeing a groove in the swivel. And I have had them snap before, not often because I usually stay on top of it, but if you use it enough, it will actually wear the stainless a little bit. So you do have to replace them every so often.
Snap ring in it?
What's that?
Snap ring on the spoon?
You know, on this particular spoon, I don't have a snap ring. I know that it will save your snap swivel, so you can keep that on the spoon.
Yeah, that's
I always take them off for whatever reason. I just want to see if Vinny, this is a new one he just gave me. So he doesn't have it on there. He gives you one, but I generally don't use them. Not on the front of it, but it's a good idea. There's nothing, I don't doubt it would kill the action on them. Just, you know, I'm a creature of habit. I use them without, so.
it kills the action on it?
No, I don't think it would. I think it would be fine. It's just that I don't particularly myself use it that way. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted, heck, you could put a split ring on there, and then you could attach a ball bearing swivel into the split ring, then tie direct. But it's a quicker change, you know, to have a snap swivel, in my opinion, you know, rather than having to tie a knot like that. So I don't think one way or another it really matters. What I will tell you on these spoons, well, let's just see. Hold on one second. All right, connection swivels. Okay, let's talk about like where we're going to be fishing, and then I'm going to go into the setup. You know, the different spoons we can use and stuff. What I like to do is, in the beginning of the season, we'll fish up into Raritan Bay, okay, and then we'll go to usually the back end of the bay in the shallow water, and then work our way out to the mouth of the bay as the season gets later. Sometimes we'll fish by the Statue of Liberty. We'll chunk back there. We'll fish live bunker sometimes. But the back of the bay usually is a trolling plug situation or a mojo situation in the beginning. And as we get on, as the bunkers start moving in, we go to the spoons. So that's something that it seems like it's a steady pattern every year when we do that. Around, I could say maybe about the middle of May, we start seeing the fish outside our inlets. For whatever reason, the last few years, 4 or 5 years actually, Debs has been better, the best area to fish, more so than Jones or Fire Island. Can't really say why. You know, maybe there's a little more bait there or whatever, but the fish seem to be taking that pattern the last few years. At that point, you know, you'll be fishing the spoons and you'll be fishing the mojos. Then we catch the fish till about the middle of June, and then we get them on the back end. You know, then fish will be good in Montauk in the middle of the summer. Then starting around mid-October, I'm sorry, we'll get another shot usually, and that'll last right through the end of the season into, say, you know, mid-December. Best being, I always find peak season is probably November, like the first week or two of November. Right around Election Day, it always seems to be best. Seems to be.
Debs has also been in the fall?
Yes, yeah, both of the spring and the fall, you get good shots. The last couple of years, fall's been better. I believe it's been better. I've seen more fish. I've seen certainly more jig fish, because in the spring we don't get the jig fish at all. We used to get them in the spring. We don't get them anymore in the spring. It's almost all a fall thing right now. So that's pretty much covers your seasons. What I'm going to do now is show you the spoon, the two different spoons that we use, or several different spoons. This is the TGT spoon. This is a single color spoon. It's a white spoon. Here's the important thing on these. This is a stock spoon from the store, how Vinny sells them now. They come with a big treble hook. This is the jumbo spoon, by the way. But even this size spoon, when it comes out of the package, it comes with a treble hook like this. The first thing you got to do is you got to get rid of this treble hook. When I first started using these TGT spoons, I noticed I was getting a lot of bites with them, but I wasn't holding the fish. I was hooking them and losing them a lot. So I took this hook off and went with a Siwash hook. This is either a number 8 or a 9, okay, and a lot of different companies make them. You can also get it, this is not an open eye hook. I didn't close this, it's a closed eye hook, so I had to rig it through the split ring with a split ring plier. Another hook that's a little easy to use is I might have one here. It's an open eye Siwash, and it's also a closed eye, I'm sorry. But they do make an open eye Siwash where you can just put the hook around and just clamp it with a pair of pliers. You know, probably the best hook to use is the one you use the split ring on, but you need a split ring plier to get this on and off. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. But these are great hooks, these Gamakatsu hooks, the Siwash. Why a Siwash? I don't know. It's the hook we've always used. And, you know, in my business, especially the last 3 or 4 years, you know, you'll go out for a day, and a lot of days you're not going to get a whole lot of bites. You may get 5, 6 bites a day, 3, 4 bites. You know, some cases even less. I want to make sure that when I get that bite, I'm going to hold that fish so that somebody at the end of the day has something to take home. You know, so we want to use a hook that's got a good hook percentage and catch percentage, and I found this to be the best one, the Siwash hook. If you use that treble, I'm not saying you won't catch with them, but I think you're going to find that the Siwash hook is a much better alternative. These spoons, they came out a few years back. I've used every spoon ever made. I started spoon trolling in the 80s. Ronnie Lepper was a fisherman in our area when I was growing up. He was the guy that knew all about this, helped develop a couple of the spoons for Reliable. And I learned a lot from him, you know, picking his brain and talking to him. Back then we used the Reliable spoons. Then we used a spoon called Montauk spoons, and they work great too. And I do believe they will still work to this day. This particular spoon, though, it's kind of foolproof. You control this at a speed that years ago I would have said was too fast. These spoons work for almost anybody at almost any speed. Years ago when we first fished, if you were going too fast, the spoon would spin, it would twist and twirl, and you wouldn't catch that way when the spoon spins. To this day, you still won't. This spoon, you control it over 4 knots and will not spin on you. They're almost foolproof. You don't even need the same rods that you used to need. Years ago, if you didn't have a rod like this, you know, a rod with the right action, a soft action, you wouldn't catch. If you couldn't go slow enough, you wouldn't catch. But with these new spoons now, it makes almost anybody capable of catching these fish, and a good amount of them. I don't know what they did to make it that effective, but whatever it is, the design is just really user-friendly, you know, for almost anyone. So this is a spoon I would highly recommend.
What's the make on it?
That's a TGT, it's called. There's a guy out there, he sells them, Bay Park. You can get these almost anywhere. They're not cheap. They're probably retail for somewhere $35, give or take, maybe more. Yeah. Yeah, they're not cheap, but you know, what in our business is cheap anymore? There's nothing that's cheap anymore. All the equipment, anything that works good is going to be expensive, you know. But it's a good quality item. Other thing I will caution you on with these, when you catch a couple of fish on them, the back end tends to bend. What happens is when the spoon gets a certain Let's see if I got another one that's been pounded a little bit. Nope. What will happen is once they get used a bunch and you catch a bunch of fish on them, the back end will twist and will bend a bit. So what you got to do is you want to try to keep that level of bend in it. So after I keep each fish that I catch, what I do is I take the spoon, I put it on the gunnel, and I just press down on it like this. To try, you never get the bend exact, but all you need to do is get it close. It doesn't have to be exact. But that's important because I've had times where I've caught a couple of fish and you get one that really does a job on it and the spoon's all twisted up, and someone who wouldn't know any better would just drop it back in the water, but you've got to make sure that has the correct bend in it when it goes back out. Otherwise it won't work right. And when the spoon's not working right, you just got to look at the rod. It tells you the whole story. If it's not steady pumping and a rhythm like that, 2, 3, 4, 1, like that, then it's not working right. If it just goes like this, that means it's spinning or it's going too fast. If it goes 1 and then 1 like that, that means you're not going fast enough. Rule of thumb, 4 to 4.5 knots. That would be my golden speed. 5 is, I've caught them at 5, it's getting a little bit fast. Less than that, you're not going to get the pump. So this system, this rod, this spoon, if you're in the right area, you're going to catch fish. Well, you're going to hook them. I'm not saying you're going to catch them. You're going to hook them. People lose fish with these all the time. Main mistake they make, they take the boat out of gear. Take the boat out of gear if you don't have somebody good on the rod, taking up the slack. These things, they go in a fish's mouth. If they get any slack, fish is not well hooked, it's going to pop right out. It's a big, heavy lure. Gravity will take it down a lot of times. They're not hooked right. A lot of times the fish glance at the spoon, hooked on the side of the head and the gill, whatever. A lot of times they'll just pop right out. But you can compensate for that by, what I do is I have a trolling valve on my boat, which enables me to go as slow as like 1 or 2 knots. I have the boat and I use the trolling valve. Sometimes I'll put the AP on the autopilot. I'll come back, when the fish is, getting close. And usually my mate, I'll wire the fish or lead it a fish and my mate will gaff it. Our system works very well. We've had, again, I'll knock wood right now, but we've had tremendous success over the years with the amount of fish we've hooked and the amount of fish we've boated. But it really does, it's a good idea if a lot of guys don't have a trolling valve, I understand that. It's usually the little outboards for the most part, they go slow enough you can deal with it. If you got an inboard with a big prop like mine, it gets a little harder. If you don't have a trolling valve, you don't want to leave the boat in gear, that creates too much tension. But you don't want to leave it slack either. And I never go sideways on a fish. I always keep the nose, keep the fish right off the back of the boat so I can see exactly where it is. When you're catching fish on spoons, the guy at the wheel is as important as the guy in the back. You'll lose a lot less fish like that if you make sure you put a little forward motion when you're fighting a fish. And that goes with just about anything, especially with spoons though, because they're so heavy. Okay? The other spoons, the Mahjars, they work quite well too. I'm kind of used to these. I'm sure right now I could go back to my original spoons, either my Reliables or my Montauk's, and still catch. The Montauk's, we used to have to bend those. We used to have to doctor those spoons to catch fish with them. Which years ago that was all top secret stuff, when we fished those in current, because you could catch fish without being in the current, but once you got into strong tide, you couldn't catch anything with these. And a guy, a good friend of mine, a very good fisherman, showed me how to doctor the spoon. I could tell you this now. If I told you this 20 years ago, you'd put a contract out on me. Now it doesn't matter because it's all moot. These things work without any doctoring. They're really quite remarkable, really. Now this big sucker here, I've never used this one. A kid, Scotty, who worked deck for me, he insisted on trying it, and using it, and he caught some nice fish with it. He says that they've won tournaments with it and all like that. I don't know.
With the treble off.
No, I would still take the treble off. Either way, that treble's got to come off, man. I want that thing on there, But I don't know. To me, it's a little bit of an overkill, So.
You ever sweeten it up with putting something on the hooks or
No.
feather?
You could use a feather, a Siwash hook with a feather. He makes single hooks with the feather too. I really honestly haven't found it to make a difference. The colors I like are the green and white, like this, but green and white, the all white. The yellow and white works good. I remember one day up in Raritan Bay, man. Oh, that yellow and white. You just could not get arrested on that green and white that day. And they were just pounding that yellow and white like crazy. So, you know, you always got to have a bunch of them. This way, you know, you can switch back and forth, day to day. One thing I will tell you with these spoons, watch the rod at all times. The best hint I can give you with a spoon trolling. Keep your eyes on the rod. If that rod's not pumping right, you ain't gonna get bites on it. You always gotta watch the rod. Again, this talk of mine would have been a lot more in-depth years ago, because back then these weren't available, these TGT spoons. These rods were not sold, so any outfit you had to be custom made. You had to have the exact type of rod blank. If you had the spoons, you had to have the right size spoon. You had to know if there was current or not current. And if you fished them in current and you didn't doctor the spoon the way we used to do it, you wouldn't catch them. Personally, I liked it better the way it was back then, because we caught all the fish and not many other people did. Now it's just like homogenized where everyone can catch them, which is good for the guys who make the spoons. You know, not particularly good for the striped bass population and for guys who do what I do, but it is what it is. But that's what it is right now. It's changed to the point where the stuff is so user-friendly that, you know, you could troll these things with a different rod and still catch them. Just out of habit, I still like to use the right rod. It's just the way we grew up. So, the thing I would caution you with the spoons is when you're fishing in like heavy bunker schools, around bunker schools, that's the one thing bad about these spoons is when they rock, those hooks are swinging like crazy. And when those hooks are swinging like crazy, they're gonna snag bunker. So when you see your machine black out red, then you got a problem, because more than likely you're gonna hook a bunker with one of these things. And when you do that, it's a real pain in the ass. Then you're gonna bring your spread in, take the bunker off, and you don't wanna have that. Unfortunately, that happens quite frequently. Which brings me to the other part of the whole situation, the mojos, okay? And you're gonna see in a little while why that's important. Those are one of the few lures that you can actually fish in with the bunker, and they actually work better that way. So, these mojo lures, first off, this is the rod that we're using, the outfit we're using. You don't have to use this exact rod. This is a Daiwa SG47 LC3B, a lot of numbers and a lot of letters. I like it because it's light and it holds a sufficient amount of braid. It's not as durable as a 4.0, okay? And the outfit is so nice and light that it's enjoyable to catch the fish on this outfit as opposed to catching it with a wire. This is set up with 65-pound braid. I believe it's AllPro. Not 100% sure, but you can use 50 or 65. I wouldn't go much lighter than 50, but this will get your bait down a bit, you know, more so of course than mono. This rod is nothing fancy. It's just an ugly stick. You can use anything. You could use a broomstick on these things. They have built-in action. The tail on the mojos, you could put this on a hand line and it would work. It wouldn't matter. So the rod's really unimportant. The thing about the rod is you want something that's light so you get a little more enjoyment out of fighting a fish. You want also something that's got enough backbone to handle a big fish. And sometimes two. When you use these tandem rigs, you do get double headers. I had quite a few of them. But this particular outfit is something that I like. There's other outfits, again, that will work just as sufficiently. This is just the one that I've chosen. Actually, I've found out that there's another reel made by Akuma that's actually really good for this too. I don't have the model number in my head right now. I could go through my phone and find it. But it's about the same size, maybe a little bigger. These line counters do go after a while, and the drags don't hold up well on these reels. But, you know, again, you're dealing with 30 to 50 pound fish sometimes on a reel that's not that big. So the drag doesn't have a lot of surface on it. So after a certain amount of fish, I mean, if you use them the way I do, you know, for the average user, it's not, you know, you can get a season out of it probably. Me, sometimes I got to replace it during the middle of the season. But it's a nice way to catch them because it's a much lighter outfit, you know, and you do have the potential to get a double. So attached to the braid, I put fluorocarbon leader on here only because why not? You know, it certainly can't do any harm, and to me, it's an advantage. You know, years ago, we never had fluor. We caught plenty of tunas without it. Once we started using it, we never went back. And it kind of followed through to all the other types of fishing we do, even bass chunking. Black fishing, I use it almost exclusively on my rig, so I think it's a good thing to use. For the slight amount of extra cost, it's worth it. When we're attaching the braid to the monofilament, all right, I'm going to try to do this for you. It's an all-bright knot. I think it's the best option.
How much topshot do you use?
Probably 15 feet, 20 feet. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pass this around. And you'll see the transition. This is an old knot, but you'll see, you know, how low profile it is. And I'm going to tie the knot in front of you here right now. So what you want to do with this, you know, it might even go by another name. I always called it an all-bright knot. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to take like 3 or 4 inches of it like that. I'm going to pull it. I want to kind of come to a point right here, see? Like that. This is a great knot for bottom fishing. I've caught 100-pound tunas jigging with this knot on braided outfits into a leader, into a diamond jig, or whatever jig. So now I'm going to use about 4 or 5 inches, 5, 6 inches, and I'm going to flip it over 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sometimes you can go an extra one if you want. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 the other way, 4, 5. Take the end, slip it through and pull it. But here's the tricky part. You can't just take this and pull it. It won't cinch up right. So what you do is you pull it up on one side, pull it again, pull it up on the other, and one more time. And then for sure, like that. And see how tight it cinches up? It's a smooth transition, relatively easy to tie knot. And again, when we jig bluefins, we use this. I've caught a good amount of fish, over 100 pounds with this system. And knock wood, never a break. But, you know, it's got to be tied correctly, and then you want to trim it kind of tight. This is a braid scissor. Not supposed to do that. Oh, see, I left a little bit much on there. I trim that even tighter. If you really want to get crazy, you could put crazy glue on it, but I never had. Okay. And then on the other end, we just got again, a ball bearing snap. Doesn't have to be any size in particular. That's a little smaller end of snap I'll use on a spoon. And then there's a number of types of mojos we use. I mean, this is, I call this La Bomba. This is a 24, this one. You don't want to get hit in the head with this sucker because it'll knock you to hell. Just like that. Okay, this thing gets down there pretty good, and it's caught a lot of fish for me. Then you've got another one. This is a 16. This is a nice lure too. Caught a lot of fish on this. Either color, the green or the white's good. I've heard guys tell me they caught on pink, stuff like that. They supposedly work good.
What speed with the mojos?
Okay. We're going to talk about a slightly slower speed than on the spoon. So in other words, the mojo, the spoons are like 4.5 maybe. The mojos, I like to run them down 3 to 4 knots, 3.5 to 4, just a little bit slower.
You ever run spoons, mojos?
Yes. The way I do that is I put 2 spoons out on the outside, and then I'll run this monster down the middle, you know, but I'll keep it short, you know, maybe 100 feet of braid. So the other thing with these things is that, you know,
with the speed, if you go slower for the mojo, you know.
I know you're a little fast. You're a little fast with this to go that speed. Yep. But no, but if you use that heavier one, drop that one down the middle. Yeah, but go heavy with that.
Put extra weight up high
You could do that too.
just to keep it down.
You could use a drill. I think they're cumbersome, you know. This is more self-contained. But I've had a lot of days where this will sometimes outfish the spoons. Then when we're fishing all mojos, which a lot, you know, actually last year and the year before, we started fishing them a lot more often. You know, we're trying to get away from the wire if we can. And a lot of days, they do work as well or better sometimes.
And they'll hit, because we did one thing where they were saying mismatching, especially with the spoons. You know, if they have 2 spoons, they got to be matched. Or else they spook the, you know. I ran a smaller mojo than a bigger. Another one, and they said, no, it screws it up. I'm just saying.
Well, no, you're running a tandem rig though.
Right.
All right. So these are singles. The tandem rig is a different.
No, I mean singles. You know, I lost one, and I only had a smaller mojo.
Yeah.
Smaller spoon, so I put 2 spoons out. One was a smaller spoon than the other. But somebody was saying, yeah, that's why I wasn't hitting after that because of.
Listen, trolling is a weird thing.
Yeah, I know.
You got your stuff out some days, and you'll shake your head like, what the hell, you know? Why did, you know, my buddy's catching me? Well, you know, how come we're not catching as well as I think we should? And it does go that way sometimes. Sometimes it's, we used to mark our spoons. When we get a spoon that caught well, we put a little check on it. All my old spoons, I still got them in the garage. They've all got marks on them. Notches, marks. This is a good one. Sometimes you'll put one out, and it just won't catch.
Can you do the multicolor?
What's that?
The spoons, the multicolor ones? You do
These, yeah, I like these, but I've had days where I've caught very well on the white or in the all
You
green.
run a green and a white.
Yeah, you know what? You got to put stuff out and see what works. There are days that I'll stack. In other words, if I got one of each out, and I'll be like, okay, see what hits. That green one again? That's one again? I start getting bites on one, I'll flip the other one, and I'll put them all out the same color. I've had days where that happens, you know, no explaining it. The thing, good thing about these, aside from the fact that you could use lighter tackle to troll them, is you could fish them in with the bunker, and they work even better sometimes. Like if you learn how to read your machine, you look at your machine, and you see the machine's blacked out top to bottom. You know that's bunker. That's the way they read. Okay. You see when you go through your spoon or whatever, you see the top tip of your rod just getting clobbered, bounced. Okay. Put a spoon through there, you're going to more than likely hang. Get the bunker on. You put these mojos through, what it is when they track, you know, they're not rocking like a spoon. It's just tracking like a dart. So most of the time, the head of the mojo will deflect off the bunker, and you will hook a bunker with these two, but not very often. Put out a tandem, a little bit different. Then you got 2 hooks, you got a good chance of snagging a bunker. But the singles, when fishing those bunker schools, deadly, deadly.
Do you prefer the singles to the tandems?
When I'm fishing in with a bunker, yeah.
But just in general?
No, overall the tandems work better. You know, whatever, I guess there's more baits, you know.
What's the
But-
proper way of setting them out?
What's that?
What's the proper way of setting them out? As far as,
Well, okay, there's a couple ways to do it. We got line counters. For me, it's quick and easy to just say, you know, guys, 200, Guys 100, 150, this, that, you know, like that. It's quick. It's easy. A lot of guys, and guys that have been using these longer than me, like to drop them to the bottom and then wait a couple of seconds. They ride off, then drop it down to the bottom again and then lock it up. A lot of guys do it that way. The easier it is to do, excuse me, getting over a cold. The easier it is to do, the better it is for me. This is why I can get all the guys involved, you know, the guys that are fishing on the boat. So if I could just tell them to let out to 200, it's quicker, easier, and faster for me. And I'd rather do it that way. But I know a lot of guys who fish them that way. They drop to the bottom. They don't even have line counters. They use them that way. I would say try it that way. If that works for you better, then do it that way.
How far do you keep them off the bottom?
Well, see, that's the thing. With these, one of the things I had against these motors when I was first using them was, in my mind, I was never 100% sure where they were running. You know, I know where the spoon's running because I know the formula. I've been using the formula for almost 40 years now. I know it. Back, forth, up and down. With the Mojos, it's a little more guesswork. But somehow the fish find them, you know, when you put them out. And like everything else, trial and error. You know, I like fishing them in the shallow water better because then I know that there's only a certain amount of level there and I'm going to be in the feed zone more than likely. When you start talking about 50, 60 feet, it gets a little trickier then. Because now you got a lot of fish could be up top, they could be down below. If they're in 20 foot, it makes it a lot easier.
You ever do umbrella?
Have I ever?
Mojos?
No.
I'm just seeing the guy outside here, he had like six
Well,
Mojos on an umbrella.
It theoretically should work. Theoretically should work, but it's got to be a heavy son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's,
You know?
that's what I'm saying, if you're running spoons.
You know what? Oh God knows how many fish I caught on umbrella rigs in my life. But you know, we got away from those. We're trying to try to.
Never use them.
Listen, when sand eels are around, can't beat them. Deadly, deadly. But, you know, again, this fishing is like, it's fad, you know. This is what's popular now. I'm going to tell you something about these Mojos, and people will probably get angry at me for saying this, but if the bluefish show back up again, can't use them. Unusable. They'll destroy them. Destroy them. But right now, this pattern, fishing pattern we have right now, they're good. Yes?
Do you oppose the tactical angler's clip of than the snap swivel that you said to use? Is that because you rather use?
Well, I don't want to twist the line.
Yeah, the bull
You know, I mean, look, if you're attaching with a swivel, a ball bearing swivel, it's okay.
Well,
But you don't want the twist. You know, that's why we want to use because you know, look, some of the rigs they have three-way swivels built into them. Like if you get this is the one that Vinny sells. This is a really well-made, nice unit. Okay, the Hojos, he sells them outside. If you look at this and you look at the Rockfish Candy, this is a nicer setup. It really is. But you know, this is made a little differently. It's made with bead chain, not a three-way. The idea with this is that you could reel it through the guide. So you know how the one with the three-way, you got to twist, you know, they're hard to store. These are a lot easier to store. And they are made a little better as far as the construction. You know, the heads and stuff like that have a nicer finish. And they're priced similarly, you know, so this is a nice option. He's been selling these for the last couple of years. And I've used them. They definitely work quite well. And again, they're a lot easier to store. And it also comes with a ball bearing snap swivel in it. It's called a Hojo. Yeah. He's got a table outside. His name is Vinny Viteri.
When you fish with the tandems,
Mm-hmm.
I just started using them.
Right.
You hook up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't slow the boat down. And you can't set the hook, can
No, you don't need to.
You don't need to
They hook.
have
They
that.
hook themselves.
And by setting the hook, you have a chance to lose one. You get the slack as you go back.
Well, I mean, if you're holding the rod in your hand when the fish hits.
No.
Oh, another thing, another little trick I'll tell you about with the Mojos. When I mark fish on a machine, I grab the rod and I work the jig. You'll get bites more frequently that way.
Mojos included.
Mm-hmm. No, not with the spoon. Only the Mojos.
Mojos.
Yeah, work the rod, just lift it, drop it, like that. It'll work good like that. Excuse me one second, this guy might be waiting for a ticket at the gate. Sorry about that. Okay, so, yeah, I would say work the jig. It works a little better like that. You'll get more bites. Kind of like, you know, what they do when they giant tuna fish, Jim. I guess when they mark, they work the, yeah, it works.
Colors with Mojo,
What's that?
colors with the Mojo, same thing, white, green,
Same thing. He makes pink. He does all kinds of different colors. White, green seem to be just go-to colors, you know, what we've used over the years. But, you know, work those bunker schools. They work, and it's, sometimes, like, I'll look at my machine, you'll see that machine blacked out. And you've probably seen this before. And then all of a sudden, you'll get out of the bunker school. He's like, oh, look at that. See 1, 2, right on the corner. And if things are right and the fish are in the mood, when you get out of that school, you'll see the tip of your rod doing this. You know, and then all of a sudden you get out of school and then boom, the rod goes off. Happens all the time. It'll happen with the spoons too. The problem is when you go through with the spoons, you're going to snag the fucking bunkers. And you're going to bleep that out, right, Ralph? Of course he is. This is not catechism here, guys. Come on. So, yeah, you're going to snag the bunker. You know, and these things, they track right through. Once in a while you will. Like if you go across the school where it's swimming that way and you're going this way, you might grab one, but by and large you don't. That's what's so really good about them, you know. Again, use them while the bluefish are gone, guys. Because you'll remember what I said this, if, you know, if they show up again, which it seems like things go that way in our business, you know, all of a sudden they'll pop up and one year you'll be like, oh man, the blues are here. And, you know, 5, 10 years ago, you never would have been able to use these things. You would have been driving yourself nuts all day long. You'd been trying to replace tails. And replacing the tails on these is not that easy. It's a pain in the ass. I will tell you one trick that I found to be true. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but if you heat them up, that hook goes through a lot easier. And the way you can do that, again, it's a pain in the ass. I got a microwave in my boat, put some water in there, heat it up a little. Don't make it boiling hot, you'll burn the goddamn thing. You know, warm it up a little bit, let the thing soak in there, you'll see it'll slide through a lot easier. You know, when you get into the double hook, you know, when you got the tandem rigs, like these big ones, we just use a single hook on them. We don't put the stinger in there. The tandem hook, you know, it's a little tricky to do because you got to make sure that the bait is not twisted or bent. It'll spin then. It's got to lay straight. If it lays straight, it doesn't have to be imperfect. It'll work. A lot of times, you know, striped bass, they take the bait from the head. That's why we put the treble hook in the lips. One of the reasons when we live bunker fish. So theoretically, they're going to try to go for the top part of the bait, not the back end. The bluefish, totally different. They'll chop this off. By the way, once this thing comes off, you got to reel it and put another one on. This is all the whole thing right here. You don't have that tail, you ain't going to catch nothing. So.
Does it matter hook up or hook down?
Well, no, it's a flat side on top, so the hook's going to go up on the flat side. You know, it's a good idea. Like once you find out where the hook goes, just get a magic marker and put a little mark there, and that'll kind of guide you through to pushing the hook through. These are a little tough because the hooks are big on these big ones, so it takes a while to get them through. You really got to force it through, you know. And this one even big. You see the hook on this thing is tremendous. But I had a 47-pounder, which was our biggest fish this season on this particular lure. You know, right down the middle. And I'll tell you what, you catch a fish that size on a rod like this, you know, again, this is very light, you know, but it works. And it's just a nicer way to catch them. So as long as the bluefish don't show up, we're golden. But, you know, who knows? Yes?
Assuming that there's no bluefish around.
Mhm.
Like sometimes if I go through a bunker school, I see, especially on the outside edge of them, the bass are not always on the bottom underneath.
No, no, they're on top a lot of times.
So would you reel those up so they're at the same level, or you keep them down low?
Well, you're going to stagger them anyway. I mean, I don't ever fish them at the same level. So
I mean, if you're
a
marking-
spread you can use. I put two. I put one out on each corner, and then I put one down the center. Or if I got guys that know what they're doing on the boat, they can handle themselves a little bit, I'll put a 4-rod spread out. And when you do that, you want to make sure that you stagger. You don't want to put them, you know, out at the same. So when you make the turn, see the thing with these Mojos, you can't make the same sharp turn you can with spoons. The spoons I can turn pretty sharp, you know, and I do a lot. When I'm on fish and I know they're in one little area, I'll make the no time power turn, I call it. You know, I just right, swing the boat right around.
Swing at different heights.
Yeah, but the thing is that with these, I would be less likely to do that.
I guess what I'm asking.
I don't want to get this braid twisted with each other.
I'm not asking the right
Uh-huh.
way. I guess if you're marking fish, let's say all the bass are, let's say, between 15 and 20 feet, do you reel up and put your baits at the same level, or you still keep them staggered?
Yeah, yeah. And again, with these Mojos, it's less scientific. You're guessing a little bit more, you know. But again, the best way is to, you know, use them. If you're not getting bites, let them out a little bit, reel them up a little bit, drop one down to the bottom, you know, like we were saying before, and then just reel it. Or drop down to the bottom, let it sit, and then drop it to the bottom again, and then lock it. You know, these big ones, these things shoot down to the bottom. I mean, you know, you let one out, it's just boom, you know. What's that?
You can see them on the depth finder.
Yeah, but once you get them out, then you can't see them.
No, but
Yeah.
you can see them like.
Oh, you can see them going down. Yeah. But again, it's a good way to catch them when those bunkers are around. It can be deadly. I've had some real good days using these. You know, it's funny because they started using them down south, Virginia, Maryland, Chesapeake. That's where they came from. Those guys used them for years, and nobody up here used them. They just started getting popular the last 3 to 5 years. You know, and me, I first started using them. I didn't really like them because I always felt like I was guessing, like where are they, you know? But then once I got into a rhythm, started using them, catching fish with them, you get a little more confidence. Then when you put them out, you know, you're thinking, okay, we're gonna catch, you know. But those guys use them. I don't even know how long time.
I know for more than 30 years.
Probably.
I went to school down there, and that's what my summer job was on a party boat.
Yeah.
And but they would fish with like these outrigger things with clips, like and put 6 out on each side.
Really?
I don't know what they look like skis on their side, and they would pull.
Oh, like planers,
Like
but
planer
side
board.
planers, yeah.
That's what they were, but they put like a trot line on them.
Huh.
And every 6 feet they'd have one. They'd
Wow.
do it like fish. Like
Then they were using these.
I'm 52, and I was in
Uh-huh.
college as a mate.
Huh.
And yeah, but they were all flat. It's all mud flats where they're fishing.
Right.
They're 6 feet back.
No, so see, that's the other thing I might remind you guys. You got to be careful when you're fishing these over structure. But you got to be the same careful with the spoons too, you know. In fact, even more so because they're more apt to grab something when they're going through, you know. And God, we've caught so many of the bass like that on structure. You know, not as much the last few years. The fish don't seem to be on the structure as they used to be. But they don't seem to be a lot of places they used to be right now, you know. So now it's all what we're catching now is we're catching all the giant fish that we did not catch years ago. Back then it was a 40-pounder was a rare bird. It was like 40-pounder, wow. 50 was like exceptional, like insane. Now, guys are catching 40-pounders like they're going out of style. They're not even rare anymore. I don't even bat an eye anymore. You know, it's a big population of fish now. Everything is bunker oriented now. That could be part of the reason, you know, or we've thinned the herd out to the point where we don't have a lot of the mediums around. You know? What's that?
That new law, they can't drag for the bunker?
Well, yeah, from what I understand last year, I heard a rumor about this that those bunker boats came in the summer and they mopped them up there.
They used to say, we were in the tournament, they were circling us, and we're like, what the f-? Take it off.
Yeah, well, they weren't squid boats though, because there were squid boats in there too.
They were small, yeah.
They could have been squidders, which is still bad, squid, but From what I heard from a couple of different people that that those big seiners came in at for a week or two, and they really beat up the bunkers. I did notice the end of the year there were not as much bait as I normally used to seeing, and when you did see it, I don't know if you noticed, they were down. They were not on the surface. You did not see them flip. You read them mid-water, and I thought that was pretty unusual seeing that. You know, that it was, and you know we still caught. You know, but it was just weird that we would read them and not really see them flipping and stuff like that, you know. So, are there any questions, gentlemen? I don't know. How are we running on time, Ralph?
10 minutes?
Oh, wow.
So a lot of manufacturers sell the Mojo spoon combo. Have you ever used one?
No.
Would be kind of difficult, would it?
I think, I don't see why it wouldn't work, but I've never found a reason to use it. Again, for me, simple.
Your teaser is the spoon.
Or vice versa.
Or vice
Yeah,
versa.
Yeah, that's the
yeah.
other.
Yeah,
Wouldn't have to
either
put that
or.
much line out, then you're going straight.
Yeah. In the back?
How many pound top shot you use for the,
I'm using 80.
floor?
I'm using 80 on the spoon rods.
Yeah.
On the Motors, I'm using 60.
Floor?
Yeah, I like to. I mean, look, you can use mono,
Yeah.
but it doesn't cost that much more. Use the fluoro, you know. If you got the bluefish around again,
Yeah. No,
then you may not want to use
does
fluoro.
the mono sink faster than the fluorocarbon or vice versa?
I think it's probably negligible, the difference between the two. So I wouldn't use that as a criteria really.
On your top shot, what color?
Mm-hmm.
You usually stay white or
What's that?
on your top shot? You know,
The leader?
mono, yeah.
Yeah.
You usually just stay white.
Clear. Well, this on here is Yozuri pink. This is Yozuri pink. This is what I use on my blackfish rigs. You know, I don't know. We started using the Yozuri pink
That spoon is so big.
when we blackfished. So I just kind of, but you could use anything, really, it doesn't matter. And again, you know, fluoro, to me, the fluoro, you know, for the little amount extra it costs, I mean, if you're serious about your fishing, you know, why not put something out there that's, you know, gives you a little more edge if possible. 5 minutes, okay. So, you know what, Vince? I don't know if he wants me to give those blackfish jigs away. You know what, guys? I'm going to give you the blackfish jigs anyway because I got them, I bought them. So Vince told me to have a giveaway.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, well, I you know, I didn't ask. I said, well, do I give the blackfish jigs away on a bass?
Everybody likes a free.
Anyway, Vince likes to do things the way Vince likes to do them, and he's the boss. Any other questions, guys? No? Yes.
Before I could afford the Maja stuff, I had tsunami rods.
Okay.
They work very well. And
For spoon trolling?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Tsunami makes a bunker spoon rod.
Yes.
I've been using them, and when I fish them side by side, I can't really tell the difference one or the other, but
I think they're stiffer, those
the
rods.
same pumping action is what
Yeah.
you want.
As long as the rod's pumping right and you're using the right spoon. Like I said, these spoons are more forgiving than the ones we used to use. Absolutely, positively. So I think you can use them now. If you would have told me this 20 years ago, I would have said, no, you got to get the right
What
rod.
I'm saying, even though you're mismatching, as long as they're both pumping, they're
Yes.
good with it.
Yeah, you just got to watch the rods. When I'm spoon fishing, I'm like this. I should get like a side view mirror or something. My neck's always twisting like this, just to make sure that the rods are pumping the right way, correctly. Any other questions? All right, gentlemen.